Thank you so much, Tyler, for joining us here at the Dwelling Show. Really appreciate your time. I know you're super busy, so we definitely appreciate you spending some time with us at the Dwelling community today.
Thanks, Ola. I'm glad you had me. I'm looking forward to it. I always like a good interview.
Yeah. And I was just telling Tyler before the call that I remember listening to him on Joe Felix's podcast, and I was like, oh my God, Tyler has the best radio voice. That's the kind of voice I want because I have a super light voice. So that was kind of interesting to have you on the show.
It,
Um,
Sometimes it's a curse, Ola. I got to tell you.
oh, really? I
Yeah,
love the sound of it.
I can't go anywhere. And people, when I go to real estate meetings and stuff, people are like, oh, that's the cash flow guy. I'm like, oh, I'm trying to be discreet. Leave me alone.
Yeah, so a little bit about Tyler. Tyler Sheff is the founder of CashFlowGuys.com, a pretty popular site, which I go to too. Is a licensed real estate problem solver. Is an educator, investor, and he also syndicates his own deals. Tyler has been involved in real estate for over 17 years now, and he maintains 100% focus on investing for cash flow while, helping us do the same. He's a master facilitator of the Robert Kiyosaki CashFlow 101 game. Love that game. Tyler also hosts workshops to teach the busy people how to use what they have to obtain what they need in order to, build passive income and escape the rat race. Tyler, I'm sure you can do a way better job than I can. So can you tell our dual listeners a little bit about yourself and kind of what you've been up to lately?
Well, for me, I'm sorry, I couldn't. My sound faded there just a little bit. Could you repeat that real quick?
Yeah, sure. I said, can you just tell the dual listeners a little bit about kind of what you've been up to lately?
Lately, for me, deal sourcing has been difficult. I was just on Joe Fairless's show and we were talking about that very thing. Same thing. The second time I've been on his show twice now. But deal sourcing has been tight. I'll admit. We're pulling out all the stops. We're doing a lot of direct mail, a lot of rubbing elbows, out shaking hands, getting to know people. Still a tough game out there. We have been putting a lot of focus on raising money for non-performing notes. We've built quite a portfolio of non-performing note assets. And I got to tell you, I wish I wouldn't have waited so long to get involved in them. I got to tell you, because my partner in the note business, she's been trying to talk me into it for a couple of years, and I was slow to it. I didn't want to. I was very focused on my multifamily game. I ignored her for quite a while about the whole topic. She's very experienced in the multifamily space as well. And then I finally started paying attention and went, now, why is she doing notes and not doing multifamily? Fast forward 2 years, now we're killing it in notes. So we're quite pleased with the results in notes so far.
So I definitely want to touch on that non-performing notes. I'm sure a lot of our dual listeners might not know what that is. So before we go to that, actually, I want to rewind a little bit back. So you've been doing this for 17 years. Why real estate, right? I mean, kind of just help us chronicle what happened to kind of make that decision that I want to go into real estate.
For me, I'll be honest, initially it was I wanted to get rich quick. I was that guy. I thought, oh my gosh, I can get into real estate. I'm going to flip houses. They didn't have a home and garden television back then. This is going back to like circa year 2000. And they didn't have home and garden television. So all I knew is that I was wholesaling. Here's how I wholesaled houses back in the day. I bought them. I put a sign out front and then I sold them a couple days later. I didn't know that I could sign contracts and all the other good stuff. I kind of did it the hard way. Oops. But I don't recall hearing about guru boot camps or any of that stuff. So I was, kind of trial by fire kind of guy. I realized though, with the whole flipping thing, I was getting nuked in taxes. And I thought, I sold my portfolio. I had a big portfolio of flips. I turned them into rentals mainly because I was greedy, because I realized back then, this is going into like 2004, 2005, 2006, the property values were going up 25% per year. So I figured out that if I just put tenants in these things after I rehab them, good tenants, not people are going to trash it, I can wait and get 25% more next year, which I did. And then I got greedy and I sold them all. But what I didn't realize back then, because I used to think I was the smartest guy in the room, I didn't take into consideration the tax implication of that dumb decision. So I got a huge bill from the IRS, and apparently my charm it doesn't work with the IRS. They wanted their money. Fast forward to after that, I got out of real estate for a while. I got burnt on a flip. I lost $250,000 on a flip by someone ripping me off. And that kind of stained me to real estate for a while, and I got out of it and I went to work for the federal government. I got a job working for the government, and apparently you can be pretty much average and make a lot of money working for the government. So I I got hired by the government. I went to work on a ship at sea, which was great. I mean, I was making a ridiculous income, 6 figures a year again, for not much work. Here's the problem, though. Once again, the tax man comes knocking on my door. I was making earned income in these ridiculous overtime checks. So for me, I needed to figure out a way to reduce my taxes. When I Google searched that, Ola, everything that came back, every answer on Google that was a legal way to reduce taxes was, hey, dummy, buy real estate and keep it. Just keep it. And the rest is history.
Wow. So there's a lot of stuff in there. You talked about, the rentals, you talked about flips and how that was basically a big tax gulp. And then now you talked about going back after being burnt in real estate. I think that's kind of interesting because a lot of us have that opinion after we watch, like you said, HGTV, like, I just want to go out there, I want to make a ton of money, right? But of course, as you know, and as I know, that's not the full picture, right?
That's correct.
But I definitely want to touch on losing $250,000 on a deal. That's a huge number. Can you tell us a little bit about that story?
Well, I used to have a policy, and it was one word policy. It was trust. I have a new policy. I've revised that policy. It's now called trust but verify.
Uh-huh.
And what I did is there was a couple partners in the deal. One of them was a contractor, and it's the guy that we were friends with before we ever did business. Guy got a bunch of trucks running around town, company name, license number on the side of the truck. Who'd have thought that come to find out the guy had no license?
Wow.
And he wasn't even a legal U.S. citizen. He was an English citizen from England. So we got into this flip in St. Petersburg, Florida, this big flip, big 4 or 5 bedroom house. I don't remember exactly how many bedrooms, but a big house. And he opened up everything basically. And then what we found out later was he was basically siphoning money. We gave him access to the checking account so he could buy materials. And what he was doing is using our money to buy materials for all these other jobs that he was doing for other people and then pocketing all the cash. Well, long story short, we found out when we didn't have any money in the bank account anymore. I mean, he literally wiped our account clean, several $100,000. But the worst part was we also at the same time discovered he didn't have a contractor's license. He opened up all these walls in this old Victorian house. And then the city came down and red tagged us. And that's when it just all fell apart. They literally made us almost tear that house down to get it back to code. And the house was built in the 1800s. So trying to get back to code was a challenge. And the worst part was we had to do that without any of our money. All of our money was gone. So my other partner and I were basically spent time. I was a realtor, and I still am. And he was a different type of contractor, electrical contractor. Every time we made an extra dollar, we would literally go buy a sheet of drywall and hang it. And it took us an entire summer to put that house together, just the two of us. It was absolutely a nightmare.
Oh, wow. So that must have left a really, really bitter taste in your mouth, right?
Oh, yeah, you can't imagine. It's kind of ironic. Now, I do deals with partners now. And if you would ask me a couple of years ago if that was ever possible, I would have told you absolutely not.
Wow. So how did you overcome that? I guess, I don't know if fear is the right word, after being burnt for so much money and then going back to real estate?
Well, it comes down to, I finally got on board with, and I heard this early on, but I finally got on board with wealth as a team sport. And I changed my mindset on how that whole thing works. I realized that it was literally impossible to grow my portfolio completely by myself. My wife and I tried. We've got great credit. We have great jobs at the time. You still can't grow as exponentially as a 40-something guy needs to grow to escape the rat race. It just wasn't possible. So we had to we went the bank route, but after a while, and in that very short while, the bank says, thanks, but no thanks. You're going to have to take it to the next level. So I had to get over that situation and say, you know what, Tyler, it's time to grow up and realize what one person did doesn't affect everybody. So you're going to have to just work past that and get out there and brush off and do it all over again. But this time you're going to do it right. And you're going to do it completely by the book, everything in verified third-party verification services and all that to make sure that we're doing the right thing.
Huh. So you go back in the game and you started investing in my favorite asset class, multifamily, right?
Amen. Yeah, I needed to scale, and I couldn't do it with the single family houses was all I used to know. And if you would have told me multifamily, the first thing I would tell you is I'm not smart enough. I don't have enough money. I can't afford it. Every other failure mindset that I could come up with at the time. I kind of fell into multifamily with a little duplex that I wound up not buying. And basically, my wife and I lived in this duplex on the ocean, beautiful place. And we wanted to buy it. So we made an offer to buy it. The guy accepted our offer after we were living there. And then he decided he was going to sell it to somebody else, but didn't bother to tell us until closing day. I literally went through the underwriting process, the appraisal. I flew home. I was out of state at the time to fly home to close. His attorney at the closing, instead of the closing, hands an eviction notice because he got an offer $50,000 higher than ours. It's like, really? So I could have sued and done all that, but it wasn't worth it at the time. And I needed to find another place. We needed to find a place to live. We ran across this little fourplex, short story, and we stopped here because we needed a place to live short term until we could figure out what we're going to do. And I did the math, and I thought, this makes sense. And we bought the first the first building was a little fourplex. I bought it with a VA mortgage. I actually got paid to buy it. I walked out of closing with a check for $1,700, lender credits and rent credits. That property has appreciated over $200,000 in 2 years.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that just, it's supercharged. I did that, and it was like, I can't imagine what it must be like to be on drugs. I've never been on heroin or anything like that. But if I could liken it to that, it was like, I was so scared and conservative on my underwriting of this little thing. It was my first multifamily. It was ridiculous how good the deal was. Like on day one, I did the math again after I owned it. I was like, oh, this is beautiful. And it on day one, it cash flowed $1,800 a month. Fast forward to today, that thing cash flows over $5,000 a month. And I just did a cash out refi, pulled a little over $100,000 tax free out of it that we're going to roll into some more smaller assets here in town. It's just been a home run, and I can't complain.
So there's definitely a big jump from a 4-unit to if you were doing bigger apartment deals, right?
Yeah, when we got into the bigger assets, it was a big learning curve. My mentor at the time told me that I needed to focus on, I needed to cut my teeth on the big stuff, because my mindset was I'm going to stick with, I get this, 2, 3, 4 units. I can handle that. Residential mortgage is real easy. He got me on board with think bigger because you're underselling yourself. So that's what I did. And I jumped into, you ready for this one?
Yes.
D like David class in South Memphis. I had to navigate the waters of South Memphis. He did help me quite a bit. And I got to leverage his team, and I thought I was the smartest guy in the room still. So I went out and kind of got some of my own team members and learned that I learned how to pick a team that way. I made every mistake I could possibly make. I actually talked about that the first time I was on Joe's podcast. I made a lot of mistakes in that one. I undershot the rehab. I was way over budget on rehab. Good news is, fast forward today, we're digging out of that situation. We've taken on more assets since then. We've done great up there, and we've really got a rock solid team up in Tennessee. So I'm quite pleased.
So if I'm a dual listener and I'm like, wow, I definitely don't want to go out there and kind of make the same mistake Tyler made with this asset. What are kind of like the tips would you say in retrospect would you have done differently with this particular deal?
One of the biggest challenges I had, Ola, was getting people to take me seriously, because I didn't have any experience in multifamily. And I did with the same thing Joe did, is I leveraged the property management as my experience. And the back end of that I didn't realize at the time when I did it was by bringing them in on the deal, in not in more than just a management capacity, bringing them in as an equity partner. They now have a vested interest in the success of the asset. So that was probably the smartest thing I ever did. And they have kept me in, number one, they've coached me through the whole process. They've trained me, and they've helped me build this amazing team, both in Memphis and here in Florida. And I have the ability I'm leveraging basically 100 years of other people's experience by giving them a little bit of equity. Totally worth it. And it's grown from there and it's been great. So that's the first thing I would do is partner up with somebody. I don't care to what degree, but somebody that's done it before, that's already kind of taken a beating. Because if somebody tells you they haven't made any mistakes, well,
They haven't done enough deals.
that's right. Haven't done enough deals, or you're not being honest. One or the other.
Fantastic. So you kind of went, from your flips, you graduated to the small multifamily stuff. Now you're syndicating.
Mhm.
What's next for Tyler?
I love, and people are going to probably roll their eyes when I say this, but I love the teaching. Now, that said, I don't want to be the big guru that, the whole thing, but I love watching people get it when it finally sinks in. I do a little thing and here's my guru pitch. I charge $20 for it. It's an event in my market. It's called CashFlow 101. And in my intro, you talked about being a master facilitator of that game. I use the CashFlow 101 game. I built an event and I get a pretty healthy turnout. We do these once a month in my market to teach people how to do what we do. The difference is I only charge them $20, and that's because it costs me to rent the room. And I love these people, but I don't love them enough to buy them a room for the night. But I love to see people get it, especially the young ones. I love it when I see the young millennials. They're kind of like, they're thinking they want to flip houses, they want to wholesale, they want to, and I can kind of change their mindset a little bit. So for me, I'm working on a book telling about my story, and I'm focused on my education. I'm getting ready to launch a 12-week program. It's going to be very mindset driven, because one thing that held me back, even though you may think, well, he didn't get held back, he's accomplished a lot. I could have accomplished even more, but I was the thing that was holding me back. And I want to really drive that message home. And that's why I have the podcast and the YouTube channel and all that, is to help people get out of their own way. It's very easy for us to hold ourselves back. And so what's next is I'm going to spend more time giving back, more time educating folks via my podcast, my YouTube channel, stuff like that. And then of course the note investing, and we're still doing multifamily. We're waiting for the other shoe to drop, and we're excited about, changes that may be coming. So there you go.
Fantastic. Fascinating. So we definitely have to touch on the note investing. So basic question, what is note investing?
So traditionally, you would buy the debt on a piece of property, let's say. So you go to Bank of America and get a mortgage. That mortgage is sold to multiple parties during the life of the loan. Each party buys it from the last one at a discount, because that one the person before wants to cash out of it and get all their money now. Everybody wants their money now. We buy what they call non-performing notes, which means we buy them after they've stopped performing. In other words, the owner of the property has stopped paying their mortgage for whatever reason. Those are classified as toxic assets. The banks don't want those. So the banks kind of do like a hot potato, because if they have too many toxic assets on their books, it affects their credit rating. It affects their ability to loan money. There's lots of other impacts that it has. So they want to liquidate those assets. We buy those at a significant discount. So sometimes as much as 20 cents on the dollar. We will buy that defaulted debt, and then we use a series of exit strategies to get our money back. We'll either get it to reperform by working on a reperformance. We have a credit repair company we've partnered with now that we're a franchise of, that we can help them get their credit on task. We can get the loan refinanced through the FHA after a 2-year period. We do your typical foreclosure. Sorry, you didn't pay. I'm going to need the house. We've done cash for keys. We do short sales, lots of different strategies. The difference is every single strategy, though, is profitable. And being a note holder, we've got the owner of the note. See, we own the debt, but not the structure until we foreclose. So tenants, termites, and toilets are not Tyler's problem. Well, they are on my own properties, but on these note properties, it's like, oh, the toilet overflowed. Gee, that's a shame. You better take care of that.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward to today. Now we're buying notes on multifamily. We're seriously looking at notes on multifamily, because if you won't sell me your property, there's a pretty good chance that you might default at some point. I'll buy the debt and foreclose
and get that asset. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
That is fascinating. So every time, you hear note investing, it sounds like super abstract, right? Like you said, there is no structure with it. So you think I'm just buying paper, right? So it's very hard for investors to connect the note, the promissory note, or the notes to the actual asset on ground. So my question is, when you buy these notes, even though you have different exit strategies, is there a preferred method or end goal, such as a foreclosure, so you can actually probably make more on that note?
The most profitable exit strategy, which is what we always try to do, is a workout. And
Okay.
basically, here's how that works. Let's say we paid 40 cents on the dollar, and we're talking about a $100,000 face value note. So when the guy went to the bank, he got a $120,000 mortgage. He put 20 grand down. His loan balance is 100 grand. He gave the note and mortgage to the bank. Then they hold that. They then come to us and say, hey, this guy has not paid his bill. We want this hot potato off our plate. Tyler, we'll sell it to you for 4,000 or 40,000.
40 grand.
Now I own it for 40,000. What I do is we reach out through our team to the owner of the house and say, look, I know you're having a hard time, whatever, you haven't paid. What would make it easier? I can't afford $850 a month, but I can afford $700 a month. Okay, great. We verify that through a significant process. His credit's already destroyed though, you see, so he's not going to qualify for a mortgage in most cases right off the bat. So two things happen. One, sometimes we will restructure the debt. We'll say we'll add additional time onto the back end of it, restructure the whole note, which drops his payment. We can drop the interest rate. We can do all kinds of things. We can drop part of the principal if we need to. And then over a period of time, let's say the 2 years, we've already put them into a program to help restore their credit, to get their credit back on task. Because the little secret is pretty much anybody can restore their credit back to good credit in 2 years or less, no doubt, if they're willing to do the work. So when we do a workout, the FHA, they go to the bank and get an FHA-backed mortgage. Well, the FHA-backed mortgage, remember, they're paying interest on the front end of the mortgage. They refi us out at face value, which means we get a payday. We get a check for 100 grand.
And that's like usually in 2 years, right?
In 2 years. So in that case, let's say our basis is 40,000. We paid 40,000 for the note. We spent maybe 6,000-7,000 for a workout. The rest is profit. So if you look at the numbers on that, the profit margins are ridiculous. When that happens, those are by far. And the cool thing is we get to help people stay in their house, because we all know, I don't know if you ever tried dealing with one of the big banks on the phone, but you get some call center somewhere. These folks are reading off a script. There's no human element to it. And we bring that human element to the table. And I think that's a huge difference.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. I've always found the note investing world very, very fascinating. Almost distant, but now a little bit closer.
Yeah.
And you definitely piqued my curiosity when you talked about multifamily note buying. That's very, very interesting.
It is fascinating. I absolutely love it.
So we're definitely dwelling into the quick round. These are going to be quick questions, quick answers. You ready?
I'm ready.
Let's do it. So first question, what makes Tyler unique? What's that differentiating factor that separates you from another guy or another girl?
I don't hold back. I tell it like it is. I am the same guy in person that you're hearing right now.
Fantastic. Short and sweet. Love it. Second question, what was the last book that you read, and what was the one nugget that you picked out from that book?
The Creature from Jekyll Island. I finally finished it. Yay for me. That was
Nice.
I've been trying that for about a year now. I finally got through that book. That was the best book I've ever read, ever. And my takeaway is, boy, there's so many. I think I probably have 1,000 different takeaways, but my number one takeaway is never assume.
Fascinating. So even better than Rich Dad, Poor Dad?
Oh, Rich Dad, Poor Dad is epic. Granted, Equity Happens would probably be my next favorite book besides Creature from Jekyll Island, but that book was unbelievable. I'm a history buff, so I automatically loved it. And then add to the education and how beneficial it is doing what I do for a living. Awesome book.
Yeah, I definitely have to check that out. We had that in the show notes too. Final question. You've got a ton of stuff going on. You're helping people stay in their homes. You've got multifamily stuff going on. Of course, you've got the podcast, which I know is just, a ton of activity and work. What do you do for fun?
Kayaking, fishing, and hunting. I'm a bucket list guy. I'm not getting any younger. And I'm 46 years old, and friends of mine have died in the last couple of years.
Wow.
And I'm like, wow, you're too young. So for me, it's outdoors, hunting, fishing, kayaking, off-roading in my Jeep. I just bought my bucket list truck. I bought a little Jeep Wrangler all tricked out. That's my thing, man. It's, the podcast grew so fast. I went from not even having a podcast to I made the top 10 of all real estate podcasts.
Yes, I saw that. Congratulations.
Yeah,
congratulations.
Thank you. I hit that in less than 2 years, and it's like, oh boy, that that changes the game. So the recreation had to get stepped up a little bit before I didn't go crazy.
Wow, fantastic. Well, Tyler, we can talk all day. I'd love to learn more, but of course, we're short on time. I just want to say thank you so much for giving us your time. So if I'm a dual listener and I'm like, oh my goodness, not only do I love Tyler's voice, how can I connect with Tyler? How can Tyler be my mentor, or maybe be an educator to me? Where can people find you?
Best way to reach me is through my website, cashflowguys.com. We've got a text messaging app there. Yes, that does go to my cell phone. I don't always answer it, but a lot of times that I am the one that answers it. I've got an assistant and some other people on the team that answered that as well. But I'm a pretty easy guy to find. My website's the best way to do it, cashflowguys.com.
Awesome. And definitely please let us know when your book gets out. We definitely want to read that for sure.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Ola. Appreciate it.